Hello once again, and welcome to today's webinar, Financial Crime Risks Post-COVID-19. How well are we prepared? Now, the COVID-19 pandemic, as we know, has generated various government responses, ranging from social assistance and tax reliefs to lockdown measures and travel restrictions all around the world. While unintended, these measures may provide new opportunities for criminals and terrorists to generate and launder illicit proceeds. Now, for you today, we have a very exciting and conversant panel of speakers to discuss this very hot topic, which I'm sure is near and dear to many of us. Now, without further ado, let me introduce the panel. To start with, it's Andrew's. Sorry, guys. Yeah. Without further ado, so it's Andrew Simpson, the Chief Operating Officer of Caseware. We have Dalat Akasov, the Senior Associate of AIFC. We have Victoria Borsukovska, AML Officer for Kyivstar. And we have Svetlana Golubchik, Head of Compliance and AML Dragon Capital. Welcome all. For those who are just joining us, welcome once again. We're just completing introductions. So let me get to the topic itself. So according to the recent research I read recently, there was a 66% increase in the reported scams this year compared to 2019. And for example, Action Fraud UK reported a total financial loss of 11 million this year alone. Now, we also see a variety of new frauds emerging, such as account takeover frauds, medi-crimes, phishing attacks, investment frauds, and even government official impersonations. Now, and also other predicate crimes like human trafficking and online child exploitation and whatnot. So by no means we have seen it all, right? So despite the economic downturn, these illicit financial flows continue to run, and criminals are just seeking to exploit this economic downturn as a weakness and try and find loopholes in the AML CTF controls of financial institutions, designated non-financial businesses, and virtual asset providers, you name it. Due to financial standstill caused by preventing further spread of the virus, there's a risk that we run into that the AML CFT measures will be relaxed or maybe even considered as less of a priority to boost the economy and expedite the process of payments, for example. So I'm sure from our listeners are keen to know from you, Svetlana, being the head of compliance of Dragon Capital, what are the trends that you see on the rise since the beginning of 2020? And is there an increased drive towards protecting the assets against fraud and maybe even look at onboarding customers non-face-to-face? What are the trends that you see in terms of the fraud to start with?
Dear colleagues, good morning, good afternoon. As we know, the COVID-19 pandemic has led to global challenges, human suffering, and economic disruption. In accordance with FAT COVID-19-related money laundering and terrorist financing risk and policy responses, the increase in COVID-19-related crimes such as fraud, cybercrime, misdirection or exploitation of government funds, or international financial assistance is created new sources of proceeds for illicit actors. As we know, many bank offices and branches are closed due to public health and lockdown measures. Customers are therefore carrying out more transactions remotely. Certain population segments, the elderly, low-income groups, and remote communities may be less familiar with using online banking platforms and therefore more vulnerable to fraud. Luxembourg Financial Intelligence Unit Report 2020 indicates that online bank fraud targeting financial and account information is on the rise. Also, a small proportion of economic support, directed to businesses and individuals may pose potential fraud risk. FAT members indicate that criminals may use legal persons to make fraudulent claims on government stimulus funds by posing as legitimate business seeking assistance. The economic crisis resulting from COVID-19 has led to increase in fraudulent investment schemes, such as promotions falsely claiming that products or services of publicly traded companies can prevent, detect, or cure COVID-19, Europol Report 2020 indicates. Criminals contact individuals in person, via email or telephone, and impersonate government officials with the intent of obtaining personal banking information or physical cash. In some cases, criminals impersonate hospital officials who claim a relative is sick and require payment for treatment, Interpol Report 2020 indicates. We may see an increase in fundraising schemes. In such cases, criminals posing as international organizations or charities circulate emails requesting donations for COVID-19 related fundraising campaigns for research, victims, or products. There is a significant increase in online schemes involving certain medical supplies, personal protective equipment, and pharmaceutical products. The criminals claim to be employees of businesses, charities, and international organizations, offering masks, testing kits, and other products, and request credit card information for payment or shipping fee, but never deliver the goods. So in general, we may see that criminals attempted to profit from the COVID-19 pandemic through increased fraudulent activities worldwide.
Thank you, Svetlana. That was very insightful, and absolutely agree every point that you mentioned about the type of the new trends in fraud that we see, and it is borderline, scary to some extent for especially people who work in the financial services sector. And obviously, we always turn towards the regulators as a starting point to ask for advice, and regulators have started to react to these frauds that are emerging, and by starting with creating the consumer awareness as to what types of frauds that are present. For example, FCA's Scam Smart campaign in the UK, which allows people like you and me to check if an organization is legit and helps consumer not to fall prey to insurance and pension scams. Now, since the beginning of this COVID-19 outbreak, regulatory bodies have taken measures to identify challenges, good practices, and policy responses to these new threats and trends arising from this crisis. It goes without saying that criminals are exploiting this crisis and adapting to this new modus operandi. But we just, as you know, we just heard about the number of frauds that are emerging as a result of this. So I would just like to pose a poll question to the audience about what they think of that in terms of the regulators and their responses to COVID-19. So, Elena, if you could just push the poll, that'd be great. So the poll question is, how important is the regulatory body in creating awareness to fight COVID-19 related fraud? Give you 2 minutes. right, let's look at the results now. And if we could just publish the results and have you got the results yet, Elena? Oh, great. Sorry, I think yeah, sorry, late. Great, thank you. Yeah, and that says it all, right? How important they think, and obviously there's a 6.7%. Hopefully by the end of this webinar, they feel the value, and then definitely straight from there to Dilat, who's from AIFC. From a regulatory body perspective, Dilat, how are you helping the customers fight financial crime? What are the challenges that you see there, and what are the actions that you've taken since the beginning of 2020 to kind of tackle these emerging frauds? Thank you.
Thank you, Arvind. Hello, everyone. My name is Dulat Akasov. I'm an associate at Financial Conduct and responsible for AML CFT functions in AFSA. And let me introduce my short presentation. Astana International Financial Center is the first English common law jurisdiction on the territory of Commonwealth in independent states and post-Soviet space. A legal and regulatory regime developed in line with international standards and global regulatory developments, disposed by IOSCO, Basel Committee, OECD, and other international organizations. IFC legal regime aimed to create a business impartial and fair. Also, IFC is a transparent and fair financial hub where FATF recommendations are integrated in the AML CFT policy, taking into account the disclosure of beneficial owner. In accordance with the constitutional law of the Republic of Kazakhstan on Astana International Financial Center, Astana Financial Services Authority is the regulatory body for the IFC relevant participants. AFSA regulates financial services and related activities in the IFC and develops, regulates financial services acts and supervises the activities of the IFC participants. AFSA supervises the following IFC participants in the field of AML CFT. It is financial institutions and ancillary service providers. Here you can see that we have 26 licenses on regulated activity, then 8 licenses on market activity, and 5 licenses on ancillary services. Here you can see the legal acts and documents adopted by the AFSA in the field of AML CFT. The first is AML rules, where indicated the basic requirements on AML CFT. The second one is AML action plan. It is an internal document of the AFSA where indicated the actions for the development of the AML CFT system in IFC. The next one is AML Guidance. AML Guidance is the explanatory document and aimed at providing explanations and clarifications of the basic requirements of the AML CFT legislation of Kazakhstan. The next one is the list of predicate offenses relating to money laundering and terrorist financing, and the list of typologies reports on money laundering methods. The lists were designed to assist all AML CFT stakeholders to understand better the nature of existing and emerging money laundering and terrorist financing threats and pursue effective strategies to address those threats. In the list of predicate offense, you can find the definitions of the predicate offense, which include fraud, financial crimes, as defined in FATF recommendations, and links to the Criminal Code of the Republic of Kazakhstan. The list of typology reports, there you can find different typology reports and researchers of the international organizations like FATF and FATF-style regional bodies and other countries which combat against fraud and financial crimes. The next one is ASA notice on AML training courses. In the purposes of improving the level of training and awareness of the IFC participants in the field of AML CFT, the ASA adopted the requirements to the AML training courses and established a list of recognized organizations which meet with the minimum requirements to the AML training courses. And the last one is requirements to the customer due diligence in cases when the IFC participants establish the non-face-to-face business relations with its customers. Currently, we are preparing these requirements, and after the approval, we will upload these requirements on our website. Aravind, floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Talat. That was very helpful, very insightful as well. The kind of steps that the regulatory body is, looks like you guys are on top of this, and which is very, very glad to see. To some extent, especially for countries with limited resources, these challenges can be manifold, right? So there's less business continuity planning. There'll be obviously reprioritization efforts by government because, there's a more pressing issue, which is the pandemic itself. So there's a chance that the government may redirect the resources away from the AML-CFT activities to other areas such as, economic stability, humanitarian and economy recovery efforts. And there have been some indications that some countries with less resilient regimes, especially in the AML-CFT space, may be unable to maintain the operations while they prioritize responding to the COVID-19. So these challenges are manifold, as I said. So what is everyone looking for, right? Is it a way to find these frauds? And if they did, looking at it from a screening lens, for example, you see the data is always a key. You need a real-time, right data set, a trusted partner who is up to date with the regulatory requirements, like which Talat just specified, from PEPs to sanctions to adverse media. What are the new adverse media that you should be aware of as part of these frauds? So Talat, how has the data requirements changed when it comes to the the customer data and screening and from a regulatory standpoint? Is there more focus on any specific categories of data, and how is that emerging?
Thank you for your question, Aravind. Let me to continue. In case of AML-CFT supervisions, we have several measures which we require from the IFC participants. And in case of AML-CFT supervision, ASA requires from the relevant IFC participants the following measures: to take appropriate steps to identify and assess the risks of money laundering and terrorist financing, to which its business is exposed, and establish and maintain policies, controls, and procedures in order to mitigate and manage the risks identified. The next step is undertake a risk-based assessment of every customer. Then undertake customer due diligence, which may include simplified and enhanced due diligence. Also, the relevant persons should review its customers, their business and transactions against UN and UN Security Council, FATF and FIU sanction lists, and in case of suspicious and unusual transactions and activities, the IFC participants must send suspicious transaction report to FIU. In addition, AFSA hosts thematic webinars for the relevant IUC participants in the field of AML CFT on a regular basis. And AFSA routinely provides numerous clarifications on AML issues over email and engage in direct conference calls with the relevant IUC participants. And also we consider and assess all requests which we receive from our IUC participants in case of not only AML CFT, also in case of the financial crimes and other offenses. For the customers, we can recommend the following. On AFSA website, we have sections, complaints and scams for consumers. For example, if you have any information about scams or financial crimes like fraud or money laundering, you may submit the complaint form on the AFSA website. All details you can find on our website in section for consumers. Also, we recommend addressing your complaint to law enforcement authorities and financial intelligence units. The next one, in May 2020, the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan signed the amendments to the AML CFT law of Kazakhstan. The new amendments to AML CFT law impose to adopt the requirements to customer due diligence in cases when they're establishing the non-face-to-face business relations with customers. Currently, AFSA is adopting these requirements in consultation with the Ministry of Finance. These requirements will include the following items. At first, it's a risk-based approach. Of course, the IUC participants should assess business and customer risks in case of remote business relations. Then identification and verification of customers and beneficial owners. It is also important in case of identification. Then ongoing customer due diligence and monitoring of customers' activities, considering the available risks of the remote business relations and new technologies. The next one is the reliance on the third party, then prohibitions and sanction lists, and of course, in case of suspicious activities or any unusual transactions, in case of remote business relations, IUC relevant participants should report to FIU. And of course, they should conduct record keeping, fix all the actions in case of identification, risk assessment, reporting to FIU, customer due diligence. And the last one is data protection requirements. In case of a remote communication, there should be available measures for the data protection and gathering information. Thank you.
Thank you, Dalat. That was, you mentioned definitely some interesting points there in terms of information sharing and reporting, etc. And that shouldn't take a backseat because of COVID, because we, as we noticed at the beginning of the conversation, that, you know, the frauds are not going down, or the number of frauds are increasing more than ever. So we need to be alert. Now, we know that we have the data. We know we can use it to find suspicious activity. Then what's the next step, right? So this kind of very nicely fits into the next part of the conversation, which is about public-private partnerships and how information sharing is key. Interpol has recently released a report that said the top two frauds as part of COVID is one is phishing and the other one is telefraud, and they recommend public-private partnerships or information sharing as the best way to inform the relevant authorities as an early warning system. And however, this can also be challenging due to restricted travels, information sharing through digital channels. Are they secure enough? And also the earlier point you mentioned a lot about data protection. Is there sufficient controls in place, etc., and so on. I would like to put a brief plug here and say that Refinitiv, along with Interpol and World Economic Forum, formed a global coalition to fight financial crime, with this being one of the key objectives, that is public-private partnerships, and also identifying emerging threats in this space and raising global awareness in the topic of financial crime. And this is relevant now more than ever with this increasing threat landscape. So with that, I would like to push the next poll to the audience, which is about that. Elena, if we could, yeah, there you go. So in these trying times, do we see value when it comes to PPP, which is nothing but public-private partnerships, or you can call it information sharing with private and public entities? Give you a couple of minutes on that, and we can look at the results shortly. Okay. Yep, let's have a look at the results now. Right. Okay, so that's interesting. It's a good split. Still can see a majority, 72% almost, saying yes to that, and there is a 23% who don't know how that is relevant. And I would really encourage the ones keen to explore. In the resource section, we might have some information about our coalition and what our mission is. It'll be very interesting to have a read through that as well. Now, with that scene being set, I would direct my attention to Victoria. Definitely in your world, Victoria, that especially being the largest telecom provider of Ukraine, you must be busy at this time fighting fraudsters who's kind of trying to leverage your network for the same. And are there any additional steps taken as such from your point of view between public authorities and Kyivstar since the pandemic, both domestic and international? I'd like to hear your views on that. Victoria, I think you're on mute. I think Victoria, we can't hear you. You are still on mute. Can someone please unmute Victoria, please? Victoria, can you see on your top right like a mic button where if you could click that and unmute? Yeah, cool. If you click on that, you should be able to unmute yourself. Did that work? No, we still can't hear you. I'll do one thing. I'll come back to Victoria. In the meantime, if someone can help Victoria unmute, that'd be great. Sorry about that, everybody. So I think I'll definitely go back to the data question to Andrew from Caseware, who's joining us all the way from the Americas. Super early there. Thank you, Andrew, first of all, for joining. And I'm sure you must be on your third cup of coffee. So Caseware, I know, offers a platform and a solution in this space. Obviously, we have been partners for quite some time now, and your platform plays a key role in terms of the fraud prevention, screening, AML controls, etc. So, in your view, what trends are you seeing since COVID hit us, and are customer needs really changing in terms of the data that we offer, or what they are after? Is it moving towards, I don't know, like digital first, platform is the key? What is that you're seeing in terms of that?
Well, thanks for having me, first of all, Arvind. So look, the thing to recognize is while we're thinking that the landscape has changed for financial institutions, I think we also need to recognize that the landscape has changed for criminals as well, right? So you are charged with the responsibility of protecting your financial institution from financial crimes. You have to recognize that financial crimes are going to change. So think about it. I'm a drug dealer. I have to move product across borders that are now much more restrictive because of COVID. I have to place my illicit funds and put it into quote unquote legitimate businesses. What legitimate businesses are still operating and thriving that are cash intensive? So nightclubs are all closed down. In most cities, I would say. Then you look at mass gatherings like concerts, that's all gone. Sporting events are also shut down. So a lot of the areas, restaurants are a lot more restrictive as well. So cash intensive businesses that are really good targets for criminals to place illicit funds, that is now an issue. So you have to think about how that has changed to recognize how you will change things on your side. So let's put it this way. Your transaction monitoring systems would identify suspicious activity for a restaurant where the amount of cash that they're putting into the business has just like gone up 100% or 200%, right? What it's not trained to do is to recognize that, holy crap, like this restaurant is the only restaurant in the city that is still depositing the same level of cash that they did before COVID. And all other restaurants are down 80%. So what is now suspicious may not necessarily be the same as unusual. So a business as usual might actually be suspicious. You see that? So I think what you really have to think about is not just the data, but how intelligent you are looking at that data and how well you train your staff and stuff like that. So let's go back to the data part though. Onboarding your customers, that has changed completely. I think we have seen in our own customer base where we deploy AML solutions for our customers, we would have had a moderate demand for virtual ID verification, like verifying identities virtually. We would have seen a modest demand for that. Now, in the last few months, that has just blown up. It's a big thing. All our customers are looking at how can I onboard customers remotely without them physically coming into the branch. So that's a big part of it. And then another thing is the automation from that onboarding process then. So you're talking now mostly like biometrics, someone using their cell phone to take a picture and validating it against their driver's license or their passports and validating the security features on a passport or the driver's license and then onboarding everything smoothly. So you also have to be doing the compliance in real time and making sure that the customer experience is great. So that's not necessarily the simplest thing to do. So that's one of the first things that we're seeing a change in. Then when you look at onboarding the customer, doing deeper levels of due diligence, we're seeing demand for that as well. So understanding that I'm onboarding a business, who are the ultimate beneficial owners, understanding are there any litigation going on, understanding their bankruptcy, history, things like that. So enhanced due diligence has also stepped up a bit because you're no longer able to kind of sit in front of the persons and do the interviews or physically go on site and things like that. So a lot of that is happening as well. Then as after you've onboarded the customer, the ongoing screening is important, but looking at their activity in light of COVID and understanding how that activity might now be unusual within the context of COVID. So I think that's kind of where you're going to see some big changes, and that's where you have to really be focused. But the data requirements have not changed big time. It's just that the importance of certain data has gone up quite significantly.
Very interesting point, Andrew. That's very interesting that you mentioned about that holistic platform play, increased reliance on digital tech, and especially in Refinitiv as well. We've been currently heavily investing in that space to bring such digital savvy products to market. Believe it or not, you can be digital phobic as you want, but I think that's the way the world is going, and that's the only way we can, like you mentioned, the highly volatile nature of the market, like something that was BAU back in the day is not BAU anymore. Data sets have gone up in priorities. Yeah. These are things that is showing that it's very highly volatile, and that's definitely where I think there's value and the direction of travel.
Another thing too is that if you think about so everyone always look at COVID within the context of developed countries, but if you look at developing countries they still have to function, they still have to operate, even in terms of government assistance. How do you get that to people where large parts of the population are not in that formal banking system? How are you going to do that? How do you onboard someone that's not going to deposit large sums of money in your financial institution at a very low cost? So you have to switch to more automated electronic type onboarding that does not involve having a call center of hundreds or thousands of people handling that. So I think even in developing countries, the need for that kind of virtual banking experience is just as important as you would see it in developed countries.
Absolutely. Agreed. I think hopefully, Victoria, now you can hear me. If you can, just let me know, and then I can come back to you with that question. Can you hear us, Victoria? I can't hear.
I can
great.
Hear you well.
Okay. Hi, Victoria. Welcome back.
Hello to everybody. Sorry for inconvenience, and I'm glad that you have a time to join us and you're interested in this topic. And coming back to our question related to public-private sector partnership, as everybody know, even in the good times, this partnership sometimes face difficulties, and for now, it's really a challenge to everybody. As to private sector, it's much more easier because really want to cooperate. They really want to see each other, and they are going step ahead, despite the public sector. And these companies, they are looking for any ways for different chats, Zooms, Microsoft Teams, WhatsApp messengers, in order to provide information ASAP and in full condition. They're taking all the measures to protect this information. And if we are coming back to our lovely public sector, for all these governmental institutions, the beginning of COVID, it was horrible because they awfully standard, and they do not know what to do. I can tell you on my experience, because I'm working with the National Bank and FIU of Ukraine. And first 2 weeks, it's a shock. They don't understand what to do and how to operate. And we, as a telecom operator, standing ahead of all technologies, we try to provide them with the possible ways to cooperate. And to tell the truth, during March, we had an excellent cooperation with the National Bank, because we do really find the way of timely submission of information and operational processing of this information. And if earlier, none of the National Bank employees would call me to ask to my mobile. For now, it's the ordinary practice. And public sectors, they are trying to come and to be more close to business, to understand the business, and to even try to help with some situations. In previous practice, find this. They would ask you to make an official letter, to send it, to wait 30 days in order to receive some foolish answer, and so on and so on. And now it's coming back to be more close, more comfortable, and more easy. Thank you, Arvind.
Thank you, Victoria. That's very insightful, and I hope there are more ways we can collaborate with the public authorities, domestic and international, and get that word out there in terms of tackling these emergent crimes and frauds that's happening as part of COVID. Going back to an earlier point that Andrew mentioned about digital technologies, Victoria, I have a question for you. I mean, obviously, we see digital technologies and solutions are increasing, and digital transformations via APIs and platform-based solutions are going to be the next big thing. And, this is the good old poll that started right when COVID hit us, was about who is responsible for the digital transformation in your company. And the options were CEO, CTO, and COVID. And it was interesting because I know it's not necessarily COVID so COVID is definitely a trigger, but there is definitely a culture change that also needs to happen. So, Victoria, how do you see technologies helping us fighting financial crime? Is that landscape changing? I mean, is it that now digital is going to be the fourth industrial revolution, as they say? What is that? What's your view on that?
Thank you, Arvind, for your question. Really, I think that we're standing on before industrial revolution, because now without any technology, you are blind, you can't hear, and you can work for today. For you, what your computer, any technical, any resources, any messengers, it's your ordinary day when you're trying to and looking for your emails, your chats, and so on and so on. You're looking what your colleagues send you from part of the world to where you're just for you it's just early morning, them it's late night, and you're trying to cooperate and to find this time. And of course, for now, business is looking for different tools and different instruments in order to find a more comfortable way to operate. For example, in my situation, we just launched the Aml module in the end of February of this year. It was the launch, and we started on the 27th of February. before the COVID in Ukraine started with all these great restrictions, and all this maintenance and tunes of this module, we make it sitting at home. So for now, it's a tool, it's a homemade tool. We can make say this. First was for our because if from the very beginning we're strictly protecting our information, AML and fraud, it's the different departments, and we can't cooperate because it's our information and we're sitting on this information. For now, it's a great because we communicate, we exchange information, and we are really faced that we had found a few SIM firms. I will explain if somebody doesn't know. It's went from one mobile phone with the use of different and thousands prepaid cards. People send money to one account, to one mobile phone or to one bank card. And sometimes these amounts can be hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s. So it's really great, and we really glad for today that we could create the mechanism which help us to define some kind of this kind of frauds, and to prevent, we can see and block these cards when we see that money going because the system is online. And for today, my colleagues are working to introduce some changes and to add also the geolocation module. So we could even track where the person is sitting and from which this person is sending money. It's really important, and it will be important for us, for FIU, and of course for law enforcement agencies who will detect and investigate this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Very interesting points there about the new or emerging technologies and the kind of the way people are thinking. And technology is not anymore a thing that will replace humans. It is an enabler, and it's I believe it's an enabler. It's an enabler in a way that will. Such as technologies such as machine learning, natural language processing, like you said, mentioned about geolocation. All of these are a combined use of this, and with the right partners in place, you could really free up the compliance staff's mundane tasks so that they can focus their attention to really finding that suspicious activity and spend time on the investigations that really need to be investigated. I like, again, to the point that Andrew mentioned about the BAU tasks are not BAU anymore. How do we assess it, right? I mean, maybe it is, difficult to find those slight, those patterns that has changed to kind of find what the real issue is. So definitely, these sort of APIs, platforms, digital, etc., is definitely the way that we see and how it can help reduce the operational cost. And at the same time, we shouldn't forget the improved relevance of customer experience now, because it's, as we alluded to earlier as well, it's all going to be non-face-to-face. How can you satisfy a customer without actually being in front of them and, still can put a smile on their face without creating that friction, right? So it's that balance that really matters. So coming back to you, Svetlana, I mean, can technology help compliance staff productivity and maybe with the help of digital ID systems, and how can non-face-to-face onboarding and things like that help here? And what are the types of trend that you see in terms of bringing this into the context of compliance operations and boost productivity?
Thank you, Arvind. As mentioned by Victoria and Andrew, we may see that financial transactions and business relationships have become increasingly digitized. The growth in digital financial transactions requires a better understanding of how individuals are being identified and verified in the world of digital financial services. Digital identity technologies can be used to conduct certain elements of customer due diligence under FATF recommendations. Reliable, independent digital ID systems with appropriate risk mitigation measures may be standard risk and maybe even lower risk, FATF guidance on digital identity indicates. However, obliged entities have to be mindful of the impact those changes might have on their money laundering and terrorist financing risk exposure. Additional challenges arise from the fact that an increasingly digitized environment where most services are accessible online, obliged entities may have to move away from traditional face-to-face interactions to non-face-to-face online channels. This situation has been endorsed by the recent COVID-19 pandemic. ESA opinion on the use of innovative solutions by credit and financial institutions in the customer due diligence process recognize the increasing importance of non-face-to-face interactions and is addressed to competent authorities in order for them to determine their regulatory expectations. The safeguards that obliged entities need to comply with are the ones outlined in the ESA opinion and in the FATF guidance on digital identity. Non-face-to-face interactions are considered to occur remotely, meaning the parties are not in the same physical location and conduct activity by digital or other non-physically present means. Client due diligence solutions must enable the identification and verification of clients' identity without requiring them to be physically present for identification purposes or live in close proximity to obliged entities. Given changes that COVID pandemic brought, the number of non-face-to-face customers is expected to rise significantly. Competent authorities are encouraged at the European level to support those developments, especially with the improve the effectiveness and efficiency of obliged entities, anti-money laundering, and counter-terrorist financing compliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Svetlana. That's very insightful as well. Thanks for your feedback and the things that you're doing. Very interesting. So from what I hear, information sharing is definitely key. Choosing the right data set is paramount for the firms, and above all, there's a risk-based approach that should be followed in these trying times where sufficient time is spent on investigating suspicious activities and cybercrimes and constantly monitor the customer behaviors, because customer behavior is changing primarily because of this, right? You're working from home, you're doing a lot of online transactions, a lot of payments going back and forth, cross-border payments. So basically follow the money, understand its source, destination, and the channels, and that's where you see a lot of value. And putting all these concepts on top of a technology platform that can help, along with the human intelligence, is probably the state of nirvana, I guess, for me. I mean, but before I close, I would. We'll take questions, but before that, I just want to ask everybody in the panel if you could unmute yourself and just give me a 30-second pitch of where do you see your nirvana or the ultimate 2030 goal of where the fight financial crime and the tackling fraud. How can we tackle these crimes? Let's say fast forward 10 years. And where do you see that? I mean, I'll start with Andrew, if that's okay. I think you're on mute, Andrew.
Thanks. Thank you. I think that the nirvana that you're looking at is a few things. One is, I think third-party data sources are really important. So if you look at some of the questions that are coming in, You talk about using rogue IP addresses and stuff like that. On the IT security side, one of the things that they're doing with spoofing and stuff like that is just recognizing and collecting information about IP addresses where if you see traffic coming from that, it is highly suspicious. And that helps with the kind of IP jumping and things like that. However, I think everyone has to recognize that technology is helping us to get better at this, but none of this is foolproof and none of this is perfect. So I don't think that there's ever going to be a perfect or nirvana type situation. I just think that it's a lot of hard work. Criminals are doing a lot of hard work. And so if you're on the other side of the fence, you have to be up in your game all the time and you have to be getting better.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. Same question to you, Victoria. Oh, you're mute, I think.
Yeah. No, I'm coming back.
Okay,
sorry, I was answering the question and I missed a little bit. Can you please repeat it?
Oh, yeah, sure. It's just more like a 30-second future of to the audience about what you see the space, how the space is going to evolve when it comes to fighting financial crime and fraud in your experience.
Actually, I think that all the requirements became more stricter and stricter because it's no way to step back. And if you will see in general, if you will look in general on financial crimes and how the criminals using all these new technologies, they are really, we can't follow them step by step, where will be a few, not even one, but 3-4 steps before them in order to, we can just track their crimes, but in some cases we can't prevent them. Yes, really, we are looking for the remedies, but they are looking for new ways for new crimes to be conducted, and so it's all-time struggle between good, evil, and good in order to find the balance. And thanks for this, we have our jobs and we have our works in order to prevent them and to find more and more interesting ways to do this. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Svetlana, would you like to comment on that? What do you see?
Yes, Aravind. Yes, Aravind, thank you. I would like to say that in our mutual global goal for combating money laundering and the terrorism financing, each party played a significant role. Governments to work with credit and financial institutions and other businesses to address the challenges posed by COVID-19, while obliged entities to use responsible digital financial services.
Great, thank you. And Dalat, would you like to add anything to that?
In case of advice, we can recommend that first it's the identification process. In case of identification of risks of business and risks of customers. And after the establishing the risk rating, there should be the customer due diligence measures. I think so. And after that, for our financial institutions and financial sector, it will be more useful to take measures in case of what kind of due diligence they can be. They can be simplified or enhanced. And finally, in case of detection or identification of the suspicious or unusual activities, they should be reported to the financial intelligence unit. Yes.
Great. Thanks very much, Dalat. I think we are on top of the hour. I mean, some really interesting questions have come through. We will make sure we answer each and everything and come back to you via email. Apologies that we couldn't get to all the questions. We kind of tackled the advice question that somebody had asked. I think Dalat just addressed it, but we'll definitely make sure that we reach out to you with our answers. So just once again, I want to thank all the panelists and wonderful speakers for sharing your great insights, and thanks once again for everybody for listening in. And it's been a real pleasure moderating this, and thank you very much. And please don't forget to offer your feedback and check out the materials as well. Thank you very much all.